this Sunday afternoon. I hope that I find you okay. Got some great guests lined up for you today. We're going to be talking books, plays, hair, fashion, pottery, pancakes for good measure as well. All sorts coming up on the programme. But we're going to get to my first guest right away. And we're hoping, aren't we, that lockdown is a thing of the past and we're looking ahead to the future and hoping to put the last few years behind us. But what about a whole generation of school children? Now, they've spent the last few years in and out of homeschooling, remote learning, and trying to adapt to new ways of living. And primary school teacher Banji Alexander was inspired by all of this adversity to help his Year 3 students. And he wrote his first book. It's called Lockdown Looms, Reggie's Birthday Party. And I'm so delighted to say that he joins me, Banji Alexander joins me on the programme now. Welcome to the programme.
Good afternoon, Jacqueline. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. How are you doing this afternoon? You okay?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. And yourself?
Very good. It's lovely outside, isn't it? Is it lovely and sunny where you are?
It is. It's like spring suddenly decided to greet us with.
Spring has sprung, or something like that. Have you been outside and enjoyed it a little bit?
Just to do the washing, dry my laundry.
When you get off the phone, put on BBC Sounds, take me with you and go outside. That's what I recommend. All right. Well, look, thank you so much for joining me. And it sounds like a beautiful book that you've written here, Lockdown Looms, Reggie's Birthday Party. Tell us a little bit about Reggie's story.
Oh, thank you. So it's a book that details a child's experience during lockdown. Reggie, he's the 7-year-old protagonist. He's fed up of homeschooling and online learning, and he's looking forward to celebrating his 8th birthday with family and friends as lockdown draws to an end. But unfortunately, the unpredictable nature of the pandemic means that new COVID restrictions may hinder his birthday plans.
Oh, and so many children will have actually experienced that, wouldn't they?
Indeed, and that's essentially what this book is about. It's walking children through the things that they were experiencing at the time. As you mentioned, I did write it between teaching my Year 3 class remotely online. And, there wasn't a book that I could use to, walk my learners through the COVID pandemic and, the strange new world around us.
Yeah, so you took to action, pen to paper, and here we are. And just tell me about that, because for those people not immersed in the school world, Year 3, what sort of age range is that? And is this the age range that you're thinking of with your story?
Yeah, so Year 3, they're 7 and 8-year-olds. And the book, is targeted at children, all through primary, really. If they're independent readers, then Key Stage 2, so you're looking at 7 to 12-year-olds. But it's also relevant to younger children. So if an older sibling or an older adult in the family is going to read it to them, then that's something would also be quite helpful to the younger children as well.
That's a lovely thought. And shout out to your illustrator as well, because I've seen some lovely illustrations certainly on the cover of the book. I mean, was that really important to you to get an illustrator that could bring your story to life?
Absolutely. I actually worked with 2 illustrators, so D. Nikki and Ohimi, and being in the teaching world, that language and literature is not always accessible to all children. So having images which they can, relate to and they can follow the story also, for your SEN children and your EAL children, is about just being inclusive. So it was very important. And every single page there is an illustration, and it's about making everyone feel included with this book and representation.
And talk some more about that. And you mentioned language there, because you want children to learn with their language as well. Language was something that was really important to you when you were writing. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Right. So it's written through the eyes of a 7-year-old. So it's finding that balance of making it child friendly, using the words that a 7-year-old would typically use, and explaining things in the way that they would usually explain things. But at the same time, you're tackling quite tough and challenging topics and scary topics, which, could be quite daunting if it wasn't approached in a first person perspective, through a child's eyes.
Well, I mean, it's really well done, and I think one of the things which we're all going to realise as we go into the next few weeks, months, and years is that we will all have learned quite a few lessons from this period. And I'm wondering if a story like this, if you feel that actually, when the pandemic is a thing of the past, of distant memory, this story will still resonate. What are your thoughts on that?
I think absolutely. I mean, the key themes in the story are hope,
Mm,
kindness, resilience, patience, gratitude, adapting to change. These are timeless themes that aren't just restricted to this period of time.
mm,
And again, if we're looking at any book that a child picks up, we want them to be able to feel represented in the characters that are in the story. And there is a great cast of characters in this book.
mm.
So having that representation makes children feel included, and it reinforces positive views of themselves and what they can achieve in society.
Yeah.
So, for instance, you've got Reggie. His dad in the story is a scientist, and
Hmm.
Reggie comes from a multicultural family. His mum is white Italian, his dad's black British.
Hmm.
So for me as a Bay Morpho, it was important to have a male figure in Reggie's life that had a job that Reggie could look up to and say,
Yeah,
okay, well, I can grow up and be a scientist one day,
I
just like
love
my
that.
dad.
That's
Yeah,
yeah, that's really lovely having that kind of aspirational feel to it as well. And it's that message which I think has been echoing loud and clear for a few years now. You can't be what you can't see, so it's so important that we can see figures like Reggie's dad. So that's lovely.
right, of
And
course.
just as a teacher, for you, it must have been quite challenging during the pandemic when you were having to remote homeschool, so to speak, or remote teach. So
Right.
what did you see some of the challenges for these children that you were teaching? What were those challenges that they were experiencing?
Well, being in front of a computer for a lengthy period of time
Mm,
is challenging for anyone that talks less of young primary age children. So I think primarily keeping them engaged. If they're
mm,
sat down and they're trying to concentrate, it's a different learning environment. It could be that they've got siblings in the room with them that are distracting them.
yeah.
Um, there's so many different things. It was just a new way of teaching and learning for everyone that it took a while for us to really be able to, figure out, how, how,
Hmm.
how, how best to approach it. And I
Yeah.
think for children, they are quite resilient generally anyway. But in a classroom setting, face to face learning, if you're struggling to understand something, you could put your hand up, and a
Mm.
teacher or teaching assistant can come over and explain something to you. Whereas in a Zoom setting, it's not quite the same.
Yeah. But as you say, they are really resilient. And I think having stories which they can relate to and sort of start to put themselves in the position of those characters, they can also see, as you said, there's hope and there's aspiration there as well, which is a great thing. And so look, this is the first
Right.
time in which you've put pen to paper. How did that feel for you? Do you think it's something that you'd like to do again?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been blown away by the response. A friend of mine was actually saying yesterday that they find it hard to believe that, this is my first book and it's
Oh.
been as well received as it has. And, I think as a teacher, as a creative, you just want to be able to inspire others.
Mm.
So absolutely, I'm, working on the next book, and I'm hoping that it has similar impact.
Yeah. And what about the children? What sort of impact have you, or what response have you had from children that have read the book?
Well, they've all had positive things to say. Not just children that I taught at the time, but
Mm.
I'm getting messages online from parents and teachers and head teachers and librarians saying how it has helped children because they're able to look at the characters in the book and see themselves
Mm.
um, in those characters. And there's some really sort of tough topics that are covered, like bereavement,
Yeah.
and you know children being able to have this book, with the language that's used and the illustrations. It's just made the whole experience a lot easier for them, and it's helped them with their mental health and their mental well-being.
Yeah. And with that being said, before I let you go, do you have any concerns for this generation of primary school children as they grow up, bearing in mind your position?
I think that, well, there's been a lot of learning that has been lost. So
Mm,
that's the first thing is, there's going to be gaps in children's learning, but not just gaps in their learning, but how we interact socially. Coming into schools, children, do pick up a lot of, their social norms from being around other children and other adults. And,
mm,
a lot of our children who have missed out on that for the last couple of years have got a lot of catching up to do. So I don't think we will really see the impact that this period of time has had on this generation
mm.
for years to come. So, it is concerning, but we'll take it one step at a time, really, and see how things go.
Yeah, and keep inspiring with the books and everything that you're doing, right?
Indeed, indeed.
Well, Banji, real congratulations to you, and great work with the book and what you're doing as teachers, because I know that teachers helped a lot of parents through some really challenging times and continue to as times become a bit more normal as well. So really appreciate you coming on, and we look forward to the next book that you're going to write as well. Sounds really exciting now that you've got this new career ahead of you.
Thanks so much, Jacqueline. I appreciate that.
Oh, well, great to speak to you, and hopefully we'll talk again.
All right, likewise. Enjoy your Sunday.
Bye for now.
All right, take care. Bye bye.